All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. My name is Sandra Ramirez. I'm the Director of Communications here at Estrella del Paso. Today, we will be making an announcement about the Border Refugee Assistance Fund and some grant money that was awarded. In our front row here, you may notice other groups that are here: Derechos Humanos Integrales en Acción, Servicio Jesuita en Refugiados, and Sembrando Hoy Cosechando Mañana. So these are other beneficiaries of the Border Refugee Assistance Fund grant. So we invited them as part of this celebration. Today, you will be hearing from Dylan Corbett, the Executive Director of Hope Border Institute, who will be talking about the Border Refugee Assistance Fund, as well as Bishop Mark Seitz, who will be talking about his initiative. It's a very personal initiative to the bishop, as many of you may know. And our Executive Director here at Estrella del Paso, Melissa Lopez, who will talk about the impact and really what this funding needs, the ongoing challenges our organization is facing, and just kind of what those needs are in today's ever-changing, every single day new announcement world. So we'll go ahead and start with Dylan Corbett.
It's dusty out there. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for putting this together. Sandra, Fernie, Bethany, everyone who put this together. Very grateful for pulling this together. My name is Dylan Corbett. I'm the Executive Director of the Hope Border Institute. We are a Catholic research, advocacy, and action organization located here in the Borderlands. And this year we're celebrating a decade of faith that does justice in El Paso. I'm proud to be here with two of our strongest partners in the community, Estrella del Paso, Melissa, and Bishop Seitz with the diocese. Let me talk about why we're here. Estrella del Paso has been one of the pillars of our community for close to 40 years. Over nearly 4 decades, Estrella del Paso has been part of the solution in picking up the pieces of a really broken and unjust immigration system. Right now in our country, we're in a challenging moment, a moment of systematic attack on the immigrant community. Asylum has been gutted. Refugee resettlement has been destroyed. The administration is doing everything it can to hollow out the network of service providers throughout our country that provide essential services to vulnerable migrants, including children. They're cutting contracts and programming that communities like ours count on, which allow us to marshal a safe, effective, and humane response to migration, both here at the border and in our country. And faith-based and Catholic organizations in particular are in the crosshairs of this administration. And that includes Estrella del Paso. Estrella has taken a hit. Estrella has taken a big hit. And this is intentional. The good news is that we know how to navigate this. There's a community that stands behind Estrella del Paso. I remember from between 2017 and 2021, during the first Trump administration, I was proud to work along Melissa and Estrella as we fought back to defend the rights of immigrants and our people here in the Borderlands. This time, it's not going to be easy, but we're going to do it again. I'm proud to continue to work with her, to learn from her, and to support Melissa's leadership as she continues to lead the fight right now in our community. During the first administration, one of the things that we did was pull together with Bishop Seitz to reaffirm our commitment to those arriving to the border, especially in Juarez, to those who are stranded there, to those who are being deported there, to those who are being returned there, first under Remain in Mexico, and then under Title 42. We put together the Border Refugee Assistance Fund as a sign of solidarity of El Paso with our neighbors in Juarez to let them know that we were going to be there for them. Since we formed the fund in 2019, we've been able to provide direct humanitarian support for vulnerable people on the move here at the border through shelter, through healthcare, through mental health support and transportation. We have essential partnerships with Derechos Humanos Integrales en Acción, Jesuit Refugee Services in Juarez, and a network of shelters like Cosechando Hoy and Sembrando Mañana. I'm grateful to the leadership of those organizations for being with us here today. The Catholic community in El Paso and the Catholic community across the United States can be proud of this important work to meet the needs of migrants here at the border. I'm happy that through the fund, we've been able to support Estrella del Paso in this moment of need, because our community must continue providing essential services to our immigrant brothers and sisters. I want to thank the media here for helping us to get the word out, because we're going to need to continue providing support for migrants and refugees here at the border. And we need to get the word out so that people can contribute and so that people can be part of the effort. I'm grateful too to Bishop Seitz. Bishop Seitz took the initiative to begin this project, the Border Refugee Assistance Fund. He's been a prophetic voice in support of the rights of people who migrate. He's made clear where the Catholic Church here at the border stands on migration, whoever's in office. His leadership has been a critical part of the response in the borderlands to policies that dehumanize immigrants, and also in calling us to build something better, a more just world, a more humane world. And so with that, I want to turn it over to him. Welcome, Bishop Seitz.
¿Quieres decirnos algo en español?
Puede ser también?
Sí.
I'll speak afterwards. I can do it afterwards. Yeah. Why don't you go first?
Good morning, everyone. It's good to be with you. Thank you very much for coming. As Dylan mentioned, we created this fund during the first Trump administration, when in a day, practically, the border was shut down to people who were seeking asylum, who were seeking paths, avenues to be able to cross over, many of them fleeing life-threatening situations. In that day, we realized that we were going to need to close the shelters that we in the church had opened in order to receive immigrants. We had been working in that area, and we always have whenever there's a surge in the flow of people coming across. And it was pretty shocking to us to find that our shelters were emptying, and we were kind of left. We were saying, part of us was saying, we can rest a little bit, But then it struck us that while we were resting, people were going to be suffering even more, because they would be arriving to the northern border of Mexico and be stuck there without resources, and in many cases without any place to go for shelter. The Ciudad Juarez didn't have the infrastructure to receive that many people almost overnight. And we realized that we needed to do something. Now, let me be clear, the church recognizes that borders are something necessary in a world with various states. We recognize the need to define borders, and the fact that countries have a right and should indeed manage a smooth movement back and forth across borders, and vet those who come to make sure that those who are crossing have indeed a reasonable claim to cross and will not be doing harm. But at the same time, we in the church recognize that we transcend borders. We existed before borders. And we recognize those from other countries as being brothers and sisters to us. And so simply the fact of a border doesn't delineate where our concerns begin. We're concerned with human beings, and human beings who are suffering, human beings who have inherent rights given them not by a government, but by their Creator. And so it struck us very early that we needed to do something to help those on the other side of the border, but we wanted a fund that would be flexible to be able to work on either side, and that perhaps would be supported in a national kind of way, that would be able to marshal funds in a time when the government wasn't able or willing to do that. Of course, the church doesn't have nearly the resources that a government does. There's a purpose to creating governments in order to oversee things that go beyond our individual institutions or communities. That's one of the reasons for government. But when the government isn't doing what we consider should be its part, then we still have to do the best we can. We have to marshal the resources that are possible to bring forward and to help our brothers and sisters, especially those who are so close to us, experiencing tremendous need. Our brothers and sisters in so many ways in this binational community. So the Border Refugee Assistance Fund was created. We put it out on GoFundMe, and we sought other channels to announce it. And to our surprise, really, there was a tremendously positive response. People from around the country that were looking for avenues, really, to assist. And I'm very proud to say that since its creation in 2019, we've been able to provide grants to amounting to over $600,000, primarily to shelters and other services in Ciudad Juarez. In that time, the number of shelters in Ciudad Juarez has increased tremendously, and the services they could provide have helped. And we hope that we've been a part of that. Now, in this current administration, we've once again seen a time when the movement across the border has declined to practically zero, and we remain very concerned about immigrants who are stuck with no place to go. They're afraid to return home, the place they fled. They have no money. They cannot go forward. They can't go back. And so we're very concerned about them and trying to continue to assist. But we've also recognized that with this radical removal of the government from assisting people who are poor in general, but particularly the poor that we call immigrants, that their needs on this side have increased dramatically. And we're looking for ways that we can indeed help. One of the greatest needs, of course, is for legal assistance. If anyone is even a little bit familiar with our immigration system, you know that it is extremely complex. And people like us who have been working with the system for a long time, we still don't really understand it. We go to the lawyers, you know. And even they sometimes, are struggling with an extremely complex and, I think most everyone would acknowledge, broken system. So we're blessed to have this resource here in El Paso. It is our largest ministry outside of Catholic schools in the diocese. And its whole purpose is to help immigrants to know what their pathways may be if they have one, and if not, to tell them. You need an institution like this even to inform people if there are not ways. But primarily, the diocese created this institution, as Dylan mentioned, nearly 40 years ago, in order to walk with people who don't have necessarily the financial resources, but have a tremendous need, simply to be able to express that need. There are even children, and perhaps Melissa will tell you something about this, who without them would be in court representing themselves. We've had situations where even 3-year-olds have been in that situation without representation. So that's the fundamental role that Estrella provides. And the government, through many years, has recognized that it is a valuable service that actually saves them very often because they can have an orderly process to help people through the system. So we're very glad to be able to help. We know it's small, and we believe that will be a beginning. But we really want to assist Estrella right now, as they face dramatic cutoffs in their funding. We will stand with them so that they can continue to serve these poorest of the poor among us. ¿Sabes? ¿Debo decir algo en español ahorita o no?
Después.
Después. Estará bien. Pero no puedo hablar.
Buenos dias. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. My name is Melissa Lopez. I am the executive director here at Estrella del Paso. I'm incredibly grateful for Bishop Seitz, as well as the Hope Border Institute, and other partners who have been supporting us for the last few months. As both of them said, we have been in this community and in this region for nearly 40 years. And in that time, we've served, we estimate, well over 500,000 people. In an average year, or last year, we served about 64,000 people. When you think about it, it's about 10% of the population of El Paso, a little less than 10%. And the fact is that year after year, those people don't necessarily repeat. So there's very few of those individuals that repeat. So the number of people that we've touched over the course of 40 years, generations and generations of families. And we've worked hard over the last 40 years to really grow our programs to ensure that we can provide as many services as possible in what is a very complex legal system. The only system more complex than what we do in immigration is the tax code. And so for most of you, if you're like me, you don't do your own taxes because they say that you should fear the tax man and the IRS. And so I don't do my own taxes, but I do immigration. And, you know, I've been doing this for almost 18 years now. It's always been a struggle to do this work because immigrants are made to be less than. They're seen as numbers and not people. They're a statistic, but not a human being that deserves any amount of dignity or respect. And so it's always been a struggle. But in the first 3 months of this current administration, we have seen attacks like we've never seen before. We have had a total of about $5 million in funding eliminated in the first 100 days of this administration. The first cut came on day one. And for an organization with a $7.5 million annual budget, that's a huge hit. And so we had to do what we as lawyers do best, and we went into court and we sued. And we have now, thanks to those lawsuits, had some of those services reinstated. And so we've been able to reinstate the children's program that got reinstated last week. And we're incredibly grateful to the legal team that's been working with us and in helping us get those individuals back to work. You know, in an average year, we serve about 6,000 to 10,000 individual children that come through this region. And so this is no small number. Part of what we do is, it's pretty broad what we do. But, you know, there's a story that's currently making the rounds in the media of a Venezuelan mother who was deported without her child. That child is in El Paso. And until this funding was reinstored last week, we were not in a position to be able to help that child with that situation that was happening with her family. I'm not going to get into the specifics of the case because we are still very much trying to figure out appropriate strategies. But we're talking about a story that has made international news, and that child is here in El Paso. And without this programming, that child who is 2 years old, would be left with no recourse, would be left to navigate an immigration system alone. And so that's just but one example of the work that we do here at Estrella. So we're incredibly grateful for this funding, this grant from the Border Refugee Assistance Fund. Grateful to Bishop Seitz for having, and Dylan Corbett for having had the wisdom and the insight to create this fund years ago, and we're grateful to benefit from it now. We hope that people will hear about this funding and turn around and help us raise more money, because while we have had the children's program reinstated, we have two other programs that have not been reinstated. One is known as the Legal Orientation Program, and that program provides Know Your Rights presentations to people going through the deportation process. We have more than 5,000 cases pending in El Paso on the non-detained court, and then we have thousands on the detained court. We have an average of 2,000 people detained in this region on a daily basis, and all of those people now are being forced to go to court with a 10-minute Know Your Rights presentations that the judge is obligated to give, versus the 2 hours that we typically spend with each individual, explaining to them their rights, what their options are, and what the next steps are for them. And then the other funding cut that we got just last week is for people who are deemed incompetent to represent themselves. So when the court decides that somebody cannot represent themselves, we get appointed as their attorneys. We currently have 6 cases, and the funding for those cases has also been terminated. And so this funding is going to help us bridge the gaps in those cases while we try to figure out other alternatives. But I do have to say that, we are incredibly lucky as a Catholic ministry to have some really incredible leaders. The Holy Father, Pope Francis, may he rest in peace, was an incredible advocate for immigrants. We're on the eve of a conclave and can only pray that our next Pope will be as much of an advocate as he was. But we have our own version of Pope Francis here in El Paso, and that's our own Bishop Seitz, who advocates for immigrants, not just here in El Paso, but throughout our country and throughout the world. And we're really grateful for him. He's the president of our board, and he talks about the work that we do. But more than anything, he talks about the dignity of each and every person that we serve. And that's far more important than the statistics and all of those things. What matters more is the impression that we can make in people's lives. And today we're in the fight for our lives, literally. And we're not the only ones. We're in the fight for our lives across the board. Everybody is being touched by the tremendous cuts by the administration, but no one more than our immigrant brothers and sisters. And so we are here to fight. We're going to continue fighting. We're going to continue advocating. And we will be here until there are absolutely no options left for us to be here. We will continue to fight, and we will do what we have to do moving forward. And so again, I just want to say thank you to both Bishop Seitz and to Dylan from the Hope Border Institute, and to everybody, all of our partners and colleagues in the community and throughout the country who have really been supporting us for the last few weeks.